Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and joining me today is a good buddy, a repeat guest. I'm so excited to chat with him. He is a serial entrepreneur turned spiritual seeker, and he has a brand new book out, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. It's called Soul Life Balance. Sam Kabert, thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, Kirby, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back on DMJ. I don't even know what number this is, but super pumped, and it's always good to see your face and connect with you, bro.
I totally agree. And I'm excited about your new project. So I want to jump right in. So just as we're recording this, it's literally, I think it's like dropping today as we record this. So as people view this, this will be live and so they can find it. So let's talk about your brand new book. First of all, congrats on doing it, because I know that's a big deal. Well, talk about an overview from the book and what it's about and why you decided to write it.
Well, first off, when you said, I don't know, it just hit me, and I just had like this huge wave of like gratitude as you as like a mentor and inspiration. And I don't know how many books you've wrote. Is it 4 or something?
Yeah, it's 4.
So I caught up to you. This is my 4th. Yeah.
Congrats. That's awesome.
No, but seriously though, it all comes back to like 2017, I think January, when you and Bill, shout out to Bill, did Unscripted Live at SKUCon. And I've told this story and you've heard this, but I took a video of you guys doing it, sent it to 2 buddies back home. And I said, we're doing a podcast when I get back, because I had been trying to get them to do it for like months before. I was like, look, it's literally this easy. Let's just do it. So yeah, you've been like there from the beginning in terms of my content creation. So thank you very much. And with that, I forgot what your question was.
No problem. No, first of all, thank you. It's very kind of you to say, but you put in the work and you've done a great job. And I love that you tell that story, because it's like, if these 2 yuck monkeys can do it, anybody can do it. Right? Like no, but hey, back to the book. I do want to jump into that. So talk to me about what the book's about and why you decided to write it.
That's right. So soul life balance as opposed to work life balance, right? So in 2019, I was going through a very deep and dark depression, and this plant medicine known as ayahuasca found me, as it does, and it's for healing. You do it in a ceremony. And through that, I had my first true, extremely profound and deep spiritual awakening experience. And from there, I did a psilocybin ceremony for healing like 2 weeks afterwards. And don't get me wrong, like I've loved mushrooms in high school and college, and in my career and building my business. Like I was more into like beer and drinking as opposed to like mushrooms. So it'd been a while, and I had never done mushrooms for healing. You know, I've always done mushrooms recreationally. And at the time, I didn't even know you could work with medicines in this healing capacity. So in combination of working with ayahuasca and psilocybin in a ceremonial type setting, it really like took me out of this 3D human experience in this timeline as the ego of Sam, and showed me like what like universal existential knowledge and truths, if you will. And what came of that was this concept of soul life balance, a lot of other things too, but the Soul Seeker podcast was born, and I launched that a few months later. And initially the Soul Seeker podcast was about plant medicine, earth medicines, and the concept of soul life balance. I always knew that I would write a book about it, but I'd never felt ready to write it. And for a long time too, I had like a lot of imposter syndrome and not really knowing exactly what soul life balance, like how to actually do that. Like it was a practice I was trying. And the basic premise of soul life balance is to reframe work-life balance, where we put work as a component of life. And if we look at work-life balance, just the mere fact that work comes before life, and it's a W before an L, whereas most phrases would have the letter that's closer to an A being first, it theoretically should be life work balance. And there, I could go on and on about the propaganda that is work life balance, but in essence, it's this movement that's kept us from asking questions, right? We glorify being weekend warriors. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this thing on the weekends, or I'm going to have this amazing vacation. And it keeps us asleep to how the system really is, where we're spending, most of us, on very general statement, blanket statement, spend the majority of our waking hours working without actually thinking about what it is that we want to do and spend our lives doing. So soul life balance is first and foremost a reframe where work is a component of life. And then now, especially in the post-pandemic era, with so many mental health crises and suicide rates being higher than they ever were in years past in history, and a connection to soul. That's why I put the soul before life, and it's not life soul balance, because I truly believe that we need to find ways to connect with what it means to us. And it doesn't matter if you're spiritual or religious, agnostic, atheist, because everyone has that experience. It could be as simple as being out in nature and just being quiet for a moment and connecting with the elements. Maybe it's music, whatever the case may be. So I always knew that I would write a book about this. And my first 3 books, like, honestly, I wrote those 3 books in a year. They kind of came through me. They were partially for my ego. I'm still proud of them and everything. And I always knew those were like, just like, kind of like, whatever, if you will. I always knew like I had a big book coming. And this book, I did want to get like published by an actual publisher. So not that I'm disappointed by that, but the way I talk to my friends who are in this like industry, they're like, no, you need to have like a really solid book because your first 3 weren't, and then you'll get picked up by a publisher. That said, I am more proud of this book than any of the work I've done previously. Up to this point, I've done a lot. I've had 5 different podcast shows, a food show on YouTube, a few businesses, things like that. 3 books, obviously. But my most proud project before this would be a 60-minute review I did on Pixar and Disney's film Soul. I did a 60-minute review on YouTube. It's a video that explains the concepts a bit deeper. And that has currently over 12,000 views. And if you look at my other views on that same YouTube channel, I average like 0 to 2 views. So just to goes to show how that project resonated with people. That one was really big. And I see in hindsight, because I put so much time and effort into like really crafting it. And that's been this book. This book is like my next big project that I'm super proud of. So yeah.
No, that's cool. Congratulations. I know it's been a labor for you. So I'm curious though, you talked about the idea of putting sort of the soul first. What are some tips that you can give people, or do you give people? Because I know you guide people in this to live their life more in balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently had the privilege of working with Promo Corner for their promo show, where it was all about mind, body, soul connection. And in that, I did some tips, and some things were just simple reminders. Like, I'm looking at my desk right now and I have a sticker on my monitor that says breathe, and how many times on a daily basis do we right? Because we're always breathing, but when we can take conscious breaths, it really drops us in. And it's these simple little things. There's a practice called box breathing, where you essentially would inhale for like 3 seconds, you hold at the top for 3, and then you exhale for 3 seconds, hold at the bottom, then you repeat. And each time you can add a second longer to lengthen it. And as we inhale, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which gives us more energy. And as we exhale, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a more relaxing state. So breathing and breath work, even if it's as simple as that, or alternate nostril breathing, anything like that is great. But honestly, like, it comes down to the person, whatever they feel that they want to do and not that they should do. It's something that's coming from an inner desire, and it starts with slowing down, which a lot of times starts with breathing. Then from there, it's awareness, getting curious of our thought patterns, getting curious of why we do the things we do. So awareness and curiosity have been massive for me. And then the final piece to that would be play. I don't care who you are, but especially people in spirituality, consciousness, mindfulness. And you've seen it in me, I'm sure, from a distance, where typically when people first start to go down this path, it's very serious. And it's like, I have to do the work and check off the boxes. But then as people evolve in their journey, they start to realize, oh no, that's not the way. And, how can we invite more play in?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So one of the things that pops into my head, and I think, you and I tend to come at things a little bit differently from a perspective. but one of the things that kind of pops in my head is in both ways, it feels like, from my putting it in my language, I talk a lot about being intentional, and whether it's being intentional with the design of your life, and so that you're actually focusing on the things that you actually care about, or and just down to breathing. Like, yeah, we breathe every day, but being intentional about our breathing and breath work helps to guide that. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I'm keeping it kind of surface level for now because
Sure.
it can go so much deeper. And that was an interesting thing about the book process too, because initially the message and the content was going to be more for like workaholics that were like spiritual curious or whatever, and just like giving a glimpse. But then as I started writing it, it got really, really deep. And like, I'm talk about my interest in extraterrestrials and things like that, you know, so it gets pretty woo in the book. But yeah, for the purposes of like where we're at right now, just in terms of simple things, I totally agree with you. It's kind of basic things is where it starts, and it doesn't have to be like spiritual, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, all right. So, this is a question I was curious. I was coming up with these questions for you, and this is one I wanted to ask you specifically. So we hear a lot of advice about how we can do life better, whether it's, having 6-pack abs, whether it's selling more, whether it's whatever, right? Like, so I'm curious to know, what is one piece of advice that you hear all the time that you actually think is wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but thank you for asking the question, and so I can kind of go deeper on it. And it's this way of being in spirituality where it's like, oh, did you do your meditation? Did you do your journaling? Did you do your breath work? And I'm not shaming anyone or pointing fingers, and if I were, it would be at myself first, because I've found that when I first went down this path, it was like, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do my meditation, I'm going to do my journaling, I'm going to do my breath work, I'm going to do my yoga. And as someone who even wrote a book called The Written Goal, like, I was very much in my masculine energy and archetype, which that doesn't mean like body parts or sexual organs or anything like that. Masculine is an energy trait which aligns with the yin and yang, being the yang side of structure and do and achieve, whereas feminine is the yin of yin and yang, and it's more receptive, intuitive, and flowy. So the past few years, I've been learning to connect with my feminine. And soul, life balance, soul would be the representation of yin and feminine, whereas life demands structure and that type of stuff, yang and masculine. So having said that, like, I've really learned that, when I wake up in the morning or whatever it is, like, I don't shame myself and be like, oh, I didn't meditate today. And also I don't be like, oh, let me approach this like a to-do list, because as soon as we look at something like this, where it's a to-do list, we're missing the entire point, because the point is to be in that awareness and curiosity and be in the moment.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. All right, man. This is good stuff. So final question for you. This is just something I know because we're friends on Facebook and we've chatted a few times. I know that you've recently started teaching yoga. One of the things I admire about you, and you know this, that is your willingness to sort of put yourself out there and try new things, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whatever. Why is trying new things? Why is that so important to you?
That's a good question. Actually, I have an interesting answer that just came up probably like a week ago or something, and it has to do with picking up the guitar again. I haven't played guitar in like 15 years. In high school, I played guitar for like 2 years, and I've had this just like, I haven't listened to metal in 15 years. And in high school, I was a huge metalhead. And now I'm like getting back into metal. I'm playing guitar, and I've been playing for about a month. And one of the things that picking up the guitar and writing this book taught me was, yes, I have a lot of creative outlets like the podcast and whatever, but really challenging myself with this book more so than the previous books. And especially with guitar, it's taught me that, yes, creative outlets are so important, but where I fall short, and I think the majority of society falls short, is we kind of stay within our lane or our zone of comfortability in our creative outlets. And it's really that pushing the edges to get uncomfortable and trying these new things where the growth happens. So that's something that just literally came up for me. And I haven't thought about it in that way, like, oh, why is it important for me to get outside my comfort zone? But that would be the answer that I just thought about recently. So it's very synchronistic. You asked that for sure.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find the book?
Yeah, samkabert.com has all the information about how to connect with me. And then my Instagram's there as well, at Sam Kabert. The book is on Amazon. You can find links to it from social media or my website, Soul Life Balance Book. soullifebalancebook.com has all of the information specifically just about the book.
Cool, man. Well, congratulations. I know it's been a big project for you, and I'm excited for you, bud.
Thanks, Kirby. Appreciate it.
Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.